miss your daddy.
Look at all that. Look at that. That's what they say. One nation under God. What are they talking about? Abruptly ending. So. Oh, all Freemasons meet as equals. It would be awfully symbolic, wouldn't it? Do you understand? So. Look at this. Get the chat up here. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back, Tumbleweed over there. A suspicious looking rock. Welcome, everybody. Just making a joke. Anyway, let me pull up a picture just to start this off. Start this off with something cool. Oh, here we go. So this is the crown jewel that they're after. Let me pull up the crown jewel. Boom, 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 boom. Boom. This is the crown jewel. This is all the clans of Scotland. Remember I said who the Scots are? They're the right hunters. So they're fishermen and hunters that are just. So here is MacLeod. This is where Trump comes from. And it is on... I'll get two pictures up here, actually. Just so I can have two to go back and forth from. Let me see here. So MacLeod is right up there on the coast, on the northwest. To the northwest, that's what we're looking at, is that MacLeod right there. So I'll have this right here, and then I'll show it from time to time. So we're up in right here, MacLeod, right here, this island right here. So MacLeod here is Trump's mother or grandmother or something like that. Grandmother. See how they invaded the coast like this? That's where you get Donald from. Danite. Dan, the old Don. And there's another picture. Let me pull that up. Where it actually depicts the pictures of what they did. Let's put this in the front here. And you can see that Trump's lions on his... You can see where Trump gets his lions on his royal seal. His sons. There's three of them, so there's three sons. And then Baron is a Romanov name. And see how they are Danates? And they're merchants. Look at that. Buy everything at Ross. There's Roche right there. Sutherland. Katniss. So you even have the lady from Hunger Games. Katniss right there. It's a clan. Look at that. Moray. You name eels after these people. Look at it. But see, this is what they're going after. They're trying to doppelgang them. They went into every country and doppelgang people. So Donald John Trump is literally the Trump. He is the one that invaded from the north, like a good Babylonian. And there he is right there. There's his ancestors, MacLeod, doing what Danites do best. So, isn't that interesting? Now let me make this smaller. Oops. There we go. Make this right here. Keep going through this image. McKay. See, gun, Oliphant. Sinclair, Donald Sinclair from the Rat Race movie. Whoa, gee, why is he called Donald Sinclair? Mackenzie. What is that? Marilyn Monroe. Let's see here. Ronald McDonald. Oh yeah, I forgot. Have you ever seen Futurama? The episode where those aliens ask for McNeil. It's a very, very interesting episode. And then right here you have McDonald. Remember I said Ronald McDonald, Ronald Reagan, Mr. Clinton, and Donald Trump. Oh, look. Is that Maris or Harris? I can't see. I think it's Harris. Is it the McLeod clan? It's either Harris or Maris, but I'm sure they're very similar or the same. Morrison. Ooh, McLeod has Morrison. Lewis? That's Levis. That's Levy. Wow. Finding everything out just by looking at these. Lordship of the Isles. And look at all these. Like, Cochran, Johnny Cochran. The Grissom. That's Grissom. That's Kanye right there. Right? That blue one right there. It's even his colors. Isn't that his colors? He likes that blue marble thing. Kanye right there. You understand? Cunningham. You can download these. I put these on Telegram, I think. If not, I'll do it after. Oh, look. Farquaad's son. Lord Farquaad from Shrek. Ferguson. Fleming. Gordon. Graham. Grant. Dr. Grant. Gray. All these shows. 50 Shades of Grey. Oh, gee, that's just 50 Shades of whatever these guys did. But anyway. Is that Hepburn? Is that Hepburn? Like Audrey Hepburn? Is that Home or Mome? That's Home. Like Homer. Let's see here. Lindsay, Leslie, Lamont. Lamont! Lamont, you big dummy! Get in here, Lamont! I'm having an heart attack. I'll see you, Elizabeth. McBain? Is that McBain? Macaulay? And there's another one that sounds like Culkin. Macaulay Culkin is just two, these clans. But it could be doppelgangers. You know what I mean? McGregor, McCain, McAfee, or McAfee, McAfee. It's McAfee. McFarlane. You got McFarlane in there. There's the McLeod, red, white, and blue. McLeod's always been red, white, and blue, huh? McLean. It's Mr. Clean. What is that? McLaughlin. McGuire. That's where you got the Lizzie McGuire. Garland. Is that Garland? Clanerald. I can't even pronounce that one. Okay. Malcolm. Malcolm in the Middle. Dr. Malcolm from Jurassic Park. Let's see. Matherson. Maxwell. Melville, like Herman Melville. Moby Dick. Let's see. Montgomery. Charles Montgomery Burns. Walt Hemerkus. Oh yeah, Rothschild is literally these guys with the being doppelganged by the Soviets, Romanovs. So Rothschild, Rockefeller, all that stuff, they're not actually Scottish. They're doppelganging them. Turnbull, Trotter, Wallace. What does Marcellus Wallace look like? This is a refreshing beverage. Let's see. Look at these. Ramsay, Chef Ramsay. It's raw. The scallops are raw. Nisbet, literally Nisbet. So in Toy Story, when he says, "You see the hat? I am Mrs. Nesbit." Oh, it does say Harris. I thought so, but Maris and Harris are probably the same thing. Harass, and then Maris is like bitterness of man's, and Harris is basically the same thing except more of an inflaming sickness. Murray. Look at these names. I think I got this already. Let's see here, Macmillan. Look at that, McNabb. But remember, these guys are being... Oh, Clooney. These people are being doppelgang, though. Remember, I'm not saying anything against these Scottish people. I'm saying somebody came in, took the name, and they're called Soviets, which that's why I call them. I think they can always be called that. It's not even a Russian thing. They're not even Russian. That's why it's one ethnos under GAD is what they adhere to. So the Macintosh. Oh, there's a Macintosh right there. Mackenzie. Do Macintosh. What does that say? Touch not the cat. Boda glove. What? That's weird. That's Macintosh. You should try to read these things too. I'm not gonna read them all. Let's see, McDonald's. McDonald has the McDonald's colors too. Isn't that weird? It's a coincidence though, huh? Let's see, Lyle. Logan. Logan Paul. He actually looks Scottish, though. Lockhart, Livingston, Dr. Livingston, I presume. Kennedy. Look at Kennedy's. Look at that fish. What does it say? Yacella fin? Yacella fin. That's probably like something to the end. And it's the Kennedys. But remember, the Kennedys, they try to say they're Irish. It's like, yeah, you're just doppelganger. Keith, John Stone. So Johnson is actually John Stone. Stone and the Son. Sounds similar, I think, in Hebrew. That was the word play with Messiah where it said Elohim is able to make from these stones children of Abraham. Hamilton, but there's doppelgangers. So a lot of the names you hear, they're doppelgangers in America. Back in Scotland, they're real. Over here in America, they're not real. See, Matt Maldane. Let's see, Guthrie Gunn of Killernan. Jeez. Guardian. Galbraith. Fullerton. Fraser. Fraser. So the show Fraser, they're not truly Scottish. They're doppelgangers. They're mixed with something where they're trying to birth an Antichrist physically. I mean, birth a Mashiach physically. That's not possible. That's why it already happened spiritually with Messiah, Yeshua. Hanazarat. Druman, the Truman Show. Druman. Remember how Drumpf turned into Trump? So Druman turns into Truman. He's a doppelganger. You got the Truman Show. Not the Truman Show, the Truman Show. So Dunbar, Dundas, Elliot, Elphinstone. Let's see here. Crichton. I think it's Daniel Crichton, right? That makes, or David Crichton. That makes the Jurassic Park. I think it might be David or Daniel. But Crichton, yeah, he might be a real one or a doppelganger. Crawford, Cranston, Bryan Cranston. He looks like he's probably a doppelganger. You understand? Okay. Cathart, Carhart, Carnegie, Carmichael, Campbell, like Campbell's soup, Cameron, James Cameron. And then just look at these colors too, but they're usurping something. I think they're doppelgangers. That's what I'm trying to point out. And Hitler was a doppelganger. Trump is a doppelganger. And they seem to come from this Danite, Nordic, Bohemian, Bavarian thing going on here. Brody, the Brody family. Susan Boyle, Jacqueline Bisset. Remember that song on The Simpsons? Like Jacqueline Bisset in me favorite film, The Deep. Beaton, Barkley, Charles Barkley, Balfour Declaration. Oh, it's somebody who's doppelganging this clan, black and white, with that forward. That's Hitler. That's Trump. That's Obama. Balfour. Forward. And that's what's on top of. These are all the fists. These are all what's coming out of the minds of these Templar helmets. And this is exactly what's on top of Trump's, except it's a spear. So it's Balfour with a spear. It's not Balfour Declaration, it's Balfour Enforcement. Armstrong. Agnew. Yes, that Agnew. But he's doppelganger, most likely. Nemo. Oh, Finding Nemo. Look at this. Look at that unicorn. You know what the unicorn's actually supposed to represent? Let me see if I can make this smaller. The unicorn is supposed to represent Messiah. It's supposed to represent the mysteries. And they got a crown enslaving it with a chain. So let's see that again. I want to make it a little smaller here. So you can see all these clans here. This is something I think I either put in the Telegram already or I'm going to put in after. But yeah, it's pretty cool. So let's read some more. Took up 18 minutes already. We're continuing this book here. Telling you why this man struggled. Whether he was struggling or not, I don't know. Just seems like he's sorcerer. This book didn't have to be written by only him. It could have been written by multiple people. But it doesn't matter. Let's just go over the psychology of it rather than debate on who wrote it, how many people wrote it, or whatever. So to continue where I was last off, to study history means to search for and discover the forces that are the causes of those results, meaning the wars and stuff, which appear before our eyes as historical events. The art of reading and studying consists in remembering the essentials and forgetting what is not essential. See, that could be destructive, though, especially if you shut down the country and start telling people who's essential and who isn't. Probably my whole future life was determined by the fact that I had a professor of history who understood, remember this is Adolf Hitler in Mein Kampf, as few others understand how to make this viewpoint prevail in teaching and in examining. The teacher was Dr. Leopold Potich. There's someone affiliated with that, or it's the same name in the Romanov dynasty and their history. Edgar Allan Poe, that's where it comes from. It's probably a form of Poot, possibly. Putin is probably Potesh. So Putin, this last name is even Putin in a different way of pronouncing and stuff like that. So Leopold reminding me of Napoleon. So it could be a made up name, just to reference a few people. Because Edgar Allan Poe existed. So Hitler could have read his writings. I think he wrote poems in German. I'm not sure. Or both English and German. Okay, so he understood how to make this viewpoint. So Leopold, poet of the Realschule at Linz, he was ideal personification of the qualities necessary to a teacher of history in the sense I have mentioned above, and elderly gentleman with a decisive manner but a kindly heart. He was a very attractive speaker and was able to inspire us with his own enthusiasm. Even today, I cannot recall without emotion, allegedly, that venerable personality whose enthusiastic exposition of history so often made us entirely forget the present and allow ourselves to be transported as if by magic into the past. So even this sentence is like when Trump starts talking about Manly P. Hall or something like that. Great Manly P. Hall. He would do this, blah, blah, blah. And, they just reminisce in order to guide you closer to their ideology. He penetrated through the dim mist of thousands of years and transformed the historical memory of the dead past into a living reality. He's messiahizing them, basically. You only get to the anti-messiah by messiahizing certain people. But then you just act like you're building it for yourself. You just take it and build it for yourself. When we listened to him, we became afire with enthusiasm and we were sometimes moved even to tears, whatever. It was still more fortunate that this professor was able not only to illustrate the past by examples from the present, but from the past he was also able to draw a lesson for the present. He understood better than any other the everyday problems that were then agitating our minds. The national fervor which we felt in our own small way was utilized by him as an instrument for our education, as much as he often appealed to our national sense of honor, for in that way he maintained order and held our attention much more easily than he could have done by any other means. So yeah, sometimes teachers do that. If they perceive they're in a patriotic or conservative or whatever they call them, they will teach based on that. It was because I had such a professor that history became my favorite subject as a natural consequence, but without the conscious connivance of my professor, I then and there became a young rebel. It says in scripture, all rebels will be broken. But who could have studied German history under such a teacher and not become an enemy of that state whose rulers exercise such a disastrous influence on the destinies of the German nation? Oh, he's describing fishing, which is what he's doing in the book. It's very ironic. But yeah, they want you to become a rebel. They want you to become a twice the child of hell they are, to quote scripture. That's why Billy Idol sings the Rebel Rebel song, all that stuff. They want you to label yourself that way so that the rules of engagement change and they can mess with you more. Let's see here. Finally, how could one remain the faithful subject of the House of Habsburg, whose past history and present conduct prove it to be ready ever and always to betray the interests of the German people for the sake of the paltry personal interests? See, he's not going to tell you they're Soviets, though. He's not going to tell you they're doppelgangers. He's only going to tell you they're the enemy and they're the bad man, and I'm your savior. That's what he's saying. But he's not going to tell you who they are. Really, he'll make up some other personality that they're not actually. Did not we as youngsters fully realize that the House of Habsburg did not and could not have any love for us Germans? Do you wonder why? What history taught us about... Why do you think they went up to England? What history taught us about the policy followed by the House of Habsburg was corroborated by our own everyday experiences in the north and in the south. The poison of foreign... See, he says the poison of foreign races. Notice ideologies. He makes spiritual things physical, and so it appears to catch people's attention. But it's like, no, he's describing something spiritual. It's not their races. It's not their ethnos. It's their spirituality. People could try to breed in things to make hurdles. Like, that's what a disability is. It doesn't damn anybody. It just makes it harder for them to get around. That's all. You see how that works? And they know this, but they try to confuse people. So, okay. Was eating into the body of our people, and even Vienna was steadily becoming more and more non-German city. Oh, Vienna's very German then. Yeah. See, but it's ruled by a priestly class that most likely isn't exactly German. He's not going to tell you that either. Trump's not going to tell you who actually rules. He's not going to tell you that he's a Soviet. Why would he tell you that? He might not even think it. They might make them believe their own lies. I don't know. The imperial house favored the Czechs on every possible occasion. Indeed, it was the hand of the goddess of eternal justice and inexorable retribution that caused the most deadly enemy of Germanism in Austria, this is his words, remember, the Archduke Franz Ferdinand, to fall by the very bullets which he himself had helped to cast. You see how they make an event and then somebody comes out to give you a universal perception on it, and then they control you that way, just like Elon Musk using his power to get a universal perception in voting to prop somebody up psychologically and then claim, oh, I was just putting a poll out there. So he's saying that these people deserve to be assassinated. It's like, oh, gee, I wonder why they keep getting assassinated. Why people keep trying to do that. It's like, dudes, people don't get it. Working from above downwards, he was the chief patron of the movement to make Austria a Slav state. See, he's telling you, like, oh, yes, they make Jurassic Parks, but let's make a better Jurassic Park that's actually good. It's like, no, you can't do that. He's doing exactly what they depict in Lord of the Rings, where it's like, no, a good wise Ard, wise Earth, a wizard, the good wise Ard can't use the ring. It's going to corrupt you. So this is what he's doing, but it starts in the mind. Hopefully, in his eyes, a young mind, because he's trying to disrupt how your skull is forming. The burdens laid on the shoulders of the German people were enormous, and the sacrifices of money and blood which they had to make were incredibly heavy. He's probably talking about those 50 million that died, because that was Habsburgs and different. Because these people towards the end just go crazy and start making wars against their own bloodlines, and then they literally get someone named Napoleon to come out and breed with all of them to cleanse the bloodline. You can't make this stuff up. But anyway. Yeah, anybody who was not quite blind must have seen that it was all in vain. What affected us most bitterly was the consciousness of the fact that this whole system was morally shielded by the alliance with Germany, whereby the slow extirpation of Germanism in the old Austrian monarchy seemed in some way to be more or less sanctioned by Germany herself. That's how most nations feel about their government. Habsburg hypocrisy, which, he's going to say Habsburg hypocrisy, but he's doing hypocrisy too. Habsburg hypocrisy, which endeavored outwardly to make the people believe that Austria still remained a German state, increased the feeling of hatred against the imperial house, and at the same time aroused a spirit of rebellion and contempt. Just talking about how things go in history. But in the German Empire itself, those who were then its rulers saw nothing of what all this meant. As if struck blind, they stood beside a corpse, and in the very symptoms of decomposition, they believed that they recognized the signs of renewed vitality. That's literally the poem I read. Oh, Captain, my captain, but it's O Pharaoh, mine Pharaoh. In that, because they worship death. To get context of them worshiping death, you have to watch the series I did, the Osiris Code, to understand that a bit better. In that unhappy alliance between the young German Empire and the illusory Austrian state lay the gem of the World War and also of the final collapse. In the subsequent pages of this book, I shall go to the root of the problem, supposedly, allegedly. Suffice it to say here that in the very early years of my youth I came to certain conclusions which I have never abandoned. Indeed, I became more profoundly convinced of them as the years passed. He's forming a physical bond with it that makes it harder to let it go once he learns that it's not true. He fights it more. That's his struggle. That's what he's writing in it. They were that the dissolution of the Austrian Empire is a primary condition for the defense of Germany. Further, that national feeling is by no means identical with dynastic patriotism. Finally, and above all, that the House of Habsburg was destined to bring misfortune to the German nation. Gee, who told him that, I wonder? He got special education. As a logical consequence of these convictions, or it's a number of people writing this, remember. So he continues, he or they, them. As a logical consequence of these convictions, there arose in me a feeling of intense love for my German Austrian home and a profound hatred for the Austrian state. See, this is what they do with all these Nigel Farage, Donald Trump, all these types. They have them everywhere. That kind of historical thinking, which was developed in me through my study of history at school, never left me afterwards. World history became more and more an inexhaustible source for the understanding of contemporary historical events, which means politics. Therefore, I will not learn politics, but let politics teach me. Come on, Dr. Seuss. Don't start that. Don't start that crap. I'm not licking toads. It's like, come on, really, bro. Mr. Brown can moo. Okay, a precious revolutionary in politics. I was no less a precious revolutionary in art. At that time, the provincial capital of Upper Austria had a theater, which, relatively speaking, was not bad. Almost everything was played there. When I was 12 years old, I saw William Tell performed. That was my first experience of the theater. Some months later, I attended a performance of Lohengrin. Literally Lohengrin. The first opera I had ever heard. I was Grimm is a Soviet Romanov name. Lohan sounds like it's already it's probably McLuhan. McLuhan. Oh, McLaurin. First opera I'd ever heard. Okay, I was fascinated at once. My youthful enthusiasm for the Bayreuth master of Beirut, Baalbek. Baalbek isn't in Beirut, I don't think. I'm just saying. Think of like the position on the maps, what they're close to. Bayer Medicine, Beirut. Remember the songs I was singing? The Pink Floyd. Who took Beirut? What do they call him? Bacon or something? Beirut Master knew no limits. Remember the Beirut Blast? There's a lot of occultic witchcraft stuff around that. Anyway, again and again I was drawn to hear his operas, and today I consider it a great piece of luck that these modest productions in little provincial city prepared the way and made it possible for me to appreciate the better productions later on. But all this helped to intensify my profound aversion for the career that my father had chosen for me, and this dislike became especially strong as the rough corners of youthful boorishness became worn off, a process which, in my case, caused a good deal of pain, allegedly. I became more and more convinced that I should never be happy as a state official, and now that the Ryushul has recognized and acknowledged my aptitude for drawing, my own resolution became all the stronger. See, this is one of these Soviets who really, really, really want to be a king. That's why I posted that video on Instagram, and it's on the shorts, I think. Or I'm going to post it at some point with Trump. Just can't wait to be king, and he's got Coptic eyebrows when he was a baby. He has the eyebrows of the Tyrannosaurus Rex from um, Jurassic Park. So let's see. Imprecations and threats had no longer any chance of changing it. I wanted to become a painter, and no power in the world could force me to become a civil servant. Try to read between the lines. The only peculiar feature of the situation now was that as I grew bigger, I became more and more interested in architecture. I considered this fact as a natural development of my flair for painting, and I rejoiced inwardly at the sphere of my artistic interests was thus enlarged. I had no notion that one day it would have to be otherwise. Oh, I don't know. Any way the wind blows, huh, Mr. Bohemian? You want to be king of Bohemia? Bohemian Grove. Let's see. Hitler was man of the year. Time magazine. Think to yourself, why? What ethnos is he? What ethnos is our president? Our presidents. Let's see. And then they want to make a joke where Trump is questioning the ethnos of Harris. I just showed you the ethnos of Harris. I had no notion that one day. Okay. The question of my career was decided much sooner than I could have expected. When I was in my 13th year, my father was suddenly taken from us. 13. He was still in robust health when a stroke of apoplexy painlessly ended his earthly wanderings and left us all deeply bereaved. Apoplexy. Um, Hitler could have died from that, and they covered it up. FDR died from that. Warren Harding. There's a lot of people. I mentioned that helicopter guy did. The Kim Clement guy did. They said it was a brain bleed, but that's basically what it was. Just look up the different people who have died of apoplexic stroke, or however you say it. Look that up. It's really interesting. Oh, hello, Elizabeth. Greetings. Let's see. Apoplexy. Where was I? Oh, his most ardent longing was to be able to help his son to advance in a career and thus save me from the harsh ordeal that he himself had to go through. But it appeared to him then as if that longing were all in vain, and yet, though he himself was not conscious of it, he had sown the seeds of a future which neither of us foresaw at the time. So you can read Ozzy Osbourne's biography. It's called I Am Ozzy or something. And he's blasphemous. He's saying he's God, but you have to look into the language to understand that. But he goes through the weird experiences with his father too. Let's see here. My mother felt it her duty to continue my education in accordance with my father's wishes, which meant that she would have me study for the civil service. For my own part, I was even more firmly determined than ever before that under no circumstances would I become an official of the state. The curriculum and teaching methods followed in the middle school were so far removed from my ideals that I became profoundly indifferent. Illness suddenly came to my assistance. Within a few weeks, it decided my future and put an end to the long-standing family conflict. My lungs became so seriously affected that the doctor advised my mother very strongly not to, under any circumstances, to allow me to take up a career which would necessitate working in an office. So you get like an asthma type thing. Remember I told you what ashma is in Hebrew? It's grief or guilt. So these things can manifest in different ways. Polio, uh, lupus, respiratory illnesses. They had them in the Middle East, and then they had them in the U.S. It's like, look up the history of respiratory illnesses and all that kind of stuff. And there's certain people, and it's not a whole lot of people, yet they spread it with certain medical procedures. But just do the research. Let me go here. He ordered that I should give up attendance at the real shul for a year at least, what I had secretly desired for such a long time and had persistently fought for now became a reality almost at one stroke. That is a very, 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 very unfunny joke, Hitler. He just that almost at one stroke. He just said his dad had a stroke. You see how he that's the psycho eye. Remember I told you the two eyes? I think that was meant as a joke. Germans have very, very, very dark humor. I honestly think that he might have made a joke there. Okay, influenced. See, that's why he doesn't remember his childhood that much. Do you understand? It's like he can make a joke like that because he's part of these bloodlines that they're like MK Ultra. They get their heads beaten with spoons and stuff. They try to deform their skulls before they even grow up. And then sometimes they're like amazed that they can't affect the skull because then that's how they figure out who's a chosen and not. It's really, 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 really weird. But anyway, influenced by my illness, this is Hitler again. My mother agreed that I should leave the real shul and attend the academy. Those were happy days, which appeared to me almost as a dream, but they were bound to remain only a dream. 2 years later, my mother's death put a brutal end to all my fine projects. She succumbed to a long and painful illness from which the very beginning permitted little hope of recovery. Though expected, her death came as a terrible blow to me. I respect my father, but I love my mother. See, and then he's drawing another audience here, because people went through wars and the losses from war, and there can be losses instantly from war, or there can be sicknesses from the bureaucracy of war. Your participation allows immoral things to happen, so you take part in the immorality, all that kind of stuff. It causes curses when brothers are killing brothers in war. Poverty and stern reality forced me to decide promptly. The meager resources of the family had been almost entirely used up. See, he pretends to be poor. Though my mother's severe illness, the allowance which came to me as an orphan was not enough for the bare necessities of life. Somehow or other, I would have to earn my own bread. With my clothes and linen packed in a valise, and with an indomitable resolution in my heart, I left for Vienna. See, he's going to the procreative energy of Pharaoh. These people usually travel, just like Trump did. He traveled to China, then Saudi Arabia, then Israel, then the Vatican, then the G20 thing, the Geneva. Vienna, Geneva. All these things are meant to conjure something. So he continues, I hoped to forestall fate, as my father had done 50 years before. I was determined to become something, but certainly not a civil servant. It's interesting. So, chapter 2 now, it's called Years of Study and Suffering in Vienna. So, he studied in Vienna. Now, that wasn't impossible for anybody to do. Just, you have to understand his background to know why he did what he did, why he agreed to it. Because it happens over and over in other countries. And that's why I call them all Soviets, because Soviet is like symbiote to me. It's like a Goa'uld from It's like a yerk from the Animorphs. It's like a brain worm. It's like a That's why that RFK thing, RFK Jr. with the brain worm, they're just telling you he's a Soviet. That's all they're saying. Years of study and suffering in Vienna, Chapter 2. When my mother died, my fate had already been decided in one respect. During the last months of her illness, I went to Vienna to take the entrance examination for the Academy of Fine Arts. Armed with a bulky packet of sketches, I felt convinced that I should pass the examination quite easily. At the Real Schule, I was by far the best student in the drawing class, and since that time I had made more than ordinary progress in the practice of drawing. Notice how he can draw, being a Hittite, but a messenger, a civil servant, he wouldn't want to be. That's an Amalekite. Probably gets the Hittite from his mother. And then they'll say, oh, his grandmother was Jewish. It's like, no, she wasn't. These people are doppelgangers. They just lie to you. He had a 300,000 Jewish man army. He was meant to exterminate Semites. They're still doing it. They're Soviets in Israel. They order the IDF, which looks Semitic, to terminate other Semites in Gaza and Rafah. And they scan all their phenotypes, and after they're done, they're going to unleash it on the world through China. It's been they've been talking about it for so long. I'm just here learning as I go. Like, I haven't read this. I'm just reading this after a couple. I read it like 7 years ago. I forgot when I read it. 5 or 7 years ago. So I'm reading this live time and dissecting it live time. I don't read any of this before I start. Except I've read like the first 2 or 3 pages, and I was like, oh man, this is really good. I should just do it live time. So all this that I'm reading from now on, I haven't pre-read. Armed with a bulky packet of sketches, see at the... There was one misgiving. It seemed to me that I was better qualified for drawing than for painting, especially in the various branches of architectural drawing. At the same time, my interest in architecture was constantly increasing. So they'll find people like this, because I'm a lot like this. They'll find them and they'll try to get them to see Hitler as a good person. It's like, no. He's a doppelganger. At the same time, my interest in architecture was constantly increasing, and I advanced in this direction at a still more rapid pace after my first visit to Vienna, which lasted 2 weeks. 2 weeks to flatten the curve. I was not yet 16 years old. I went to the Hof Museum, that's a 3%er name, to study the paintings in the art gallery there. I've seen the phenotype in many places. Hofstetter. But the building itself captured almost all my interest. From early morning until late at night, I spent all my time visiting the various public buildings. And it was the buildings themselves that were always the principal attraction for me. For hours and hours, I could stand in wonderment before the opera and the parliament. He's marveling at the beast. The whole Ringstrasse had a magic effect upon me. Oh, Ringstrasse. He knows about the circles and magic and all that. As if it were a scene from the 1001 Nights. There it is. 1001 Nights. There's the Turk part, the Turkic. There's the Undertaker, there's the Ashkenaz, there's the Gomar, Saddam and Gomar, Amar, Amora, America. Seeing it yet? Okie dokie, let's see. And now, like the Aladdin, Arabian Nights. And now I was here for the second time in this beautiful city, impatiently waiting to hear the result of the entrance examination. Think of Babylon. Think of when they bowed to the thing. They did this in China. Look at the examination processes in China. Chinese history. But proudly confident that I had got through, I was so convinced of my success that when the news that I had failed to pass was brought to me, it struck me like a bolt from the skies. Yet, the fact that I the fact was that I had failed. I went to see the rector and asked him to explain the reasons why they refused to accept me as a student in the General School of Painting, which was part of the academy. He said that the sketches which I had brought me unquestionably showed that painting was not what I was suited for, but that the same sketches gave clear indications of my aptitude for architectural designing. Therefore, the school of painting did not come into question for me, but rather the school of architecture, which also formed part of the academy. Remember, architecture is ta, the mark, the foundation. Because the architecture isn't building it yet. It's the four-dimensional in your mind. Imagination is the four-dimensional foundation, mark, signature, ta. That's why you get Tavistock Institute. And so he's just becoming a man of Ta, which is Texas. Man of Ta, or a temple of Ta is Egypt. At first, it was impossible to understand how this could be so, seeing that I had never been to a school for architecture and had never received any instruction in architectural designing. When I left the Hansel, on the Schillerplatz, I was quite crestfallen. He's a fan of Edgar Allan Poe. I can just tell you that. Not just because he said crestfallen. I'm just saying in general. I felt out of sorts with myself for the first time in my young life, for what I had heard about my capabilities now appeared to me as a lightning flash which clearly revealed a dualism under which I had been suffering for a long time, but hitherto I could give no clear account whatsoever of the why and wherefore. Dualism. He mentioned the 1001 Nights, and then I told you the Zoroastrianism, the best example probably of dualism. The black and white, I already told you about the flag. I told you why the Nazi flag looks like that. Within a few days, I myself also knew that I ought to become an architect. Remember Frank Costanza on Seinfeld wants to be an art. He always pretends to be an architect, and he looks like Lenin. They all look very Asiatic at the end because they all serve China. They've done it to the Mormons through all kinds of avenues. And they now own Hollywood, and now the movies aren't as good because they could be cool, but they're not like Semitic. They're less and less Semitic. They can only be cool like big explosions, like the Avengers, but like they're not quite like Mel Gibson, you know? They're just Michael Bay. Everything's Michael Bay, and there's just no more Mel Gibson because the Chinese bought up Hollywood. And they do not like Semitics. That's why they chase them up to the mountains. Go look up the Himalayas and Tibet and all that. Okay, see, become architects. Before taking up courses, the School of Architecture in the Academy, it was necessary to attend the technical building school. The necessary qualification for entrance into this school was a leaving certificate from the middle school, and this I simply did not have. According to the human measure of things, my dream of following an artistic calling seemed beyond the limits of possibility. After the death of my mother, I came to Vienna for the third time. See how, like, it's interesting, he's in Pasha or whatever. And then he talks about after his dad dies, when his mom does, he's going to Vienna. And that's the female energy, though, but it's the Baphomet energy. So weird. This visit was destined to last several years. He gained 7 psychological experiences, 7 heads. Since I had been there before, I had recovered my old calm and resoluteness. The former self-assurance had come back, and I had my eyes steadily fixed on the goal. I would be an architect. Obstacles are placed across our path in life, not to be boggled at.
but to be surmounted. And that's a true thing. Anybody can say that. And I was fully determined to surmount these obstacles, having the picture of my father constantly before my mind. When you read these books that these people write, I can read, if there's books written by Stalin, I can read those on. It's not just this book. Just saying this one is a perfect example of what they're trying to breed, what Antichrist spirit they're specifically trying to breed. And so he has human experiences just like everybody else. He could make some up or they could be real. It doesn't even matter. It's the psychology of it. It's either for evil or good, and good and evil aren't moral. It's either destruction or prosperity. Who had raised himself by his own efforts, he's talking about his father, to the position of a civil servant, though he was the poor son of a village Schumacher. I had a better start, and the possibilities of struggling through were better. At that time, my lot in life seemed to me a harsh one, but today I see it in a wise workings of providence. See, remember I said they take away God, they take away divine, because they say divine providence for such a long time, then they just said providence. Listen to what he says now. He says, the goddess of fate clutched me in her hands and often threatened to smash me, but the will grew stronger as the obstacles increased, and finally the will triumphed. He's talking about his own will. He's speaking very Gnostically. He's speaking like a Templar, like a lone wolf Templar, like a noble wolf Templar, like a benevolent psychopath. There's many benevolent psychopaths in this world that are hard to bear. I am thankful for that period of my life because it hardened me and enabled me to be as tough as I now am, allegedly. And I'm even more thankful because I appreciate the fact that I was thus saved from the emptiness of a life of ease, and that a mother's darling was taken from tender arms and handed over to adversity as if a new mother. Though I then rebelled against it as too hard a fate, I'm grateful that I was thrown to a world of misery and poverty, and thus came to blah 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 blah. Yeah, see, whether it happened or not doesn't matter. This is displaying the Bohemian story, Bohemian Rhapsody. If you look at Bohemian Rhapsody, is what it is. It was during this period that my eyes were opened to two perils, the names of which I scarcely knew hitherto, and had no notion whatsoever of their terrible significance for the existence of the German people. These two perils were Marxism and Judaism. Oh, isn't that funny? He just stuttered. That's a 3%er trait. He just stuttered. He said Marxism. He said Marxism twice. But see, they're doppelgangers. These Marxists will call themselves Jews, and they'll doppelgang. They'll be Soviets, and then they'll circle real Hebraic peoples, real Semitic peoples, act like they're the defenders of them. This is what Hitler did to Germany. Act like they're defenders. It's what Trump's doing right now. And then everybody doesn't like them. Everybody hates Soviet Israel. Everybody hates Soviet America. So what happens? They commit genocide in their name. They all leave to the north or to the Antarctic Circle, and then they leave the people who voted for it to be the scapegoat and take the and they just disguise it as a revolution. That's all it is. And so he wants to bring a new enemy in. These people are not Yehuda or Yehudim. And Marxism is a doppelganging of what is in Scripture, and trying to take the fruit of that system and corrupt it and amalgamate it into their belief. That's what they do. That's what Freemasonry does. For many people, the name of Vienna signifies innocent jollity, a festive place for happy mortals. For me, I just think of those weird, very, very small sausages. Very small. For me, alas, it is a living memory of the saddest period in my life. Even today, the mention of that city arouses only gloomy thoughts in my mind. 5 years of poverty in that Phaeacian town. The Phaeacians were a legendary people, allegedly, mentioned in Homer's Odyssey. They're pharaohs. They're sons of the pharaohs. Phaeacians, 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 Pehe, Cayennes, were a legendary people mentioned in Homer's Odyssey. They were supposed to live on some unknown island in the eastern Mediterranean, sometimes suggested to be Corcyra, the modern Corfu. There was an Egyptian pharaoh, I think his name is Corfu, wasn't it? I think that's how you pronounce it. They loved good living more than work. It's Americanism. That's the doppelganging Greek system. That's actually pharaonic and comes from Tyrus. That is the good life of Italy, but it's Roman Italy, not the real Italy. They love good living more than work, and so the name Phaeacian came to be a synonym for parasite, so pharaoh, yes. But they're not going to tell you exactly where it comes from. So he tells you it's a pharaonic town. You might not even know or claim not to know that that's what that word entails. 5 years in which, first as a casual laborer and then as a painter of little trifles, I had to earn my daily bread, allegedly. And a meager morsel indeed it was, not even sufficient to still the hunger which I constantly felt. The hunger was a faithful guardian which ever left me or took part. See, then he romanticizes this thing and tries to fish for more people. Every book I bought meant renewed hunger, and every visit I paid to the opera meant intrusion of that inalienable companion during the following days. See, the more he lies, the more he has to layer on a bunch of these nonsense words. Just, you know what I mean? I always, I was always struggling with my unsympathetic friend, and yet during that time I learned more than I had ever learned before. Outside my architectural studies and rare visits to the opera, for which I had to deny myself food, I had no other pleasure in life except my books. I read a great deal of them, and I pondered deeply over what I read. All the free time after work was devoted exclusively to study. Thus, within a few years, I was able to acquire a stock of knowledge which I find useful even today. See, people like that can either be good or bad. The bad are usually the ones that want to do it for self worth, self image, instead, or to benefit an image or an idol or a country, a nationalism. It's not for everybody. It's only for certain people or only for me. That's what he's expressing. But more than that, during those years, view of life and a definite outlook on the world took shape in my mind. These became the granite basis of my conduct at the time. Since then, I have extended that foundation only very little, and I have changed nothing in it. A real person who seeks truth is always changing something and getting different perceptions. So I'm probably gonna start one in a bit, and so I'll do 4 each time, just so I can cut off each arm of that swastika each time I do this series. Maybe I'll do 4 at a time each. This is the third one, so I want to play some music and start another one in a bit. So let me see here. What am I gonna play?
Excuse me, sir. What is your name?
And what do you do?
And what do you do?